So again, the staff is presenting this budget to you again with preliminary budget, all funds of $7,922,522. This, is any unforeseen increase or decrease in tax increments or any unanticipated changes to the current revenue stream, including found monies, will be reflected in the final budget. The recommendation is, or any changes from the board of directors, preliminary budget will be included in that final budget. It's also recommended that the board approves this preliminary budget.
Okay, thank you, Chief. So with that, we'll go on to the board if there's any clarifying questions. I had just one quick one in regards to the revenues section, the revenues table. So we talked about Measure H in the workshop. In which of these categories would that Measure H revenue be notated in here?
I think it has its own miscellaneous government revenue.
Okay. Is there anything else that would fall under that category regularly?
Kim, what else goes into miscellaneous government revenue?
So that would have been strike teams, and I believe the grant from 1819. But as far as Measure H, I don't think that one actually goes under 9595. I would have to double check and let you know.
Where is that?
Off the top of my head, which category that goes into.
Okay.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, I mean, if it's not a huge amount of money compared to the rest of the revenues, but I mean, if it's a measure and it's a measure that we get regularly, it might be worth at least having its own line item. Or I don't know if that's necessarily necessary, or maybe in. I think it's because it's under the numbers line up for miscellaneous current services. So I might have just answered my own question, but like I said, I just wanted some.
Yeah, that's exactly where it is. 9895 miscellaneous current services.
Okay, then yeah, and that might be something worth notating in the narrative part or something along those lines when we talk about the smaller revenue sources, because we've been consistently getting that for a few years now, right?
For quite a few years. I would say probably close to 20 years.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I have a question, but I'm not sure that it's about what we're talking about. It's not a budgetary question, really. I'm wondering, with the current state of unrest, where police departments are being questioned intensely, maybe defunded in some cases, do we have any contingency for how that would impact the fire department?
My retirement. Oh. I haven't heard anything in relation to fire departments being swept up in that, and we have not addressed it. That would be, because we're not a city entity and we're a special district, that would be pretty difficult to defund us.
No, I'm saying if the police department were to go away temporarily or whatever, because of some city council decision, is the fire department prepared to take up the slack?
No, none of my personnel are trained in police work.
You understand my question?
Well, the police department doesn't respond to EMS calls anyway, so there probably wouldn't be very much of an impact in regards to that. The impact would be we wouldn't have any security forces when it came time for us to respond to, which we do quite often, a hazardous condition of any type, domestic violence.
I mean, it's a giant question. I understand that, but it should be asked at some point. I mean, that's why I'm bringing it up. I know it's the ball of wax that's almost terrifying to think about.
I mean, I'd be happy to quickly comment on that, Director Thorpe. I think a part of it it relies on us looking at our revenue sources. And right now, as they sit, our revenue sources are primarily granted through taxes that come from the county and allocated by and through the county. And I think independent of a decision of the council, for example, to reduce their police services, fiscal impact on our district and our ability to provide the services, I think it would either be minimal, negligible, or even not present in terms of our funding, because of our funding sources are so different than, say, a city and the city's decisions to change the direction of their funding. But Chief Craig, let me know if I'm kind of off, and Director Thorpe, let me know if I didn't necessarily answer the question that you had.
I think as far as the finances are concerned, Chair Gabriel, I think you're spot on. I don't see, because being an independent district, I just don't see us being impacted by that. I don't see property taxes being taken away from us, which that'd be the greatest impact.
I'm talking about where the police services are significantly reduced by the county.
And yeah, that's what I addressed before, is that how it would impact us is be security going to those calls that are sometimes unsecured, and they're providing that security for us. I have.
It's a big question. It's on the level of an upheaval in government, local government. So I'm not expecting any. I don't think there's any solution to it. I'm just raising the question because it seems like it's a possibility.
Okay. I mean, it is something to consider just in the grander social state of the country right now, and even in particular to the Bay Area and the volatility. So I think that is something worth at least keeping in the back of our minds moving forward and that sort of thing. If that is that sort of your intent there, Director Thorpe?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Did anyone want to comment or maybe provide a response or even bring up anything else in regards to the budget? Okay. If I don't hear any other clarifying questions to staff, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Pretend I have a gavel, boom. Okay, we'll go ahead and take public testimony. Do we have any raised hands, speaker cards, emails, or even just Q&As on this Zoom chat?
Yes, Jerry Short has his hand up.
Good evening, Chair and Board. I would just like to have a few comments in correlation to the Director Thorpe's commentary and questions. I believe what the intent of the defunding of police departments and stuff is what they're looking at is it won't really take law enforcement out of the picture, as I understand it. Is just they're looking to have law enforcement be better prepared or outfitted, if you will, to handle the other types of emergencies that they currently respond to. So some of the things that I've read about and researched on in regard to this topic specifically is that they would maybe, you know, look at hiring counselors per se to respond and mitigate a domestic dispute instead of having a couple of other officers have to respond to it. The same would go for, you know, parking enforcement type situations, anything that was not truly, you know, in violation of a true law. And how that could affect us potentially. Well, first of all, we work directly with the county sheriff's office in our unincorporated county area of Rodeo, and then we have a city department, which is provided by the city of Hercules. So each of those agencies would have to, you know, make the same decision, even though they're independent of each other, for it to have a true impact on us. So to kind of echo what the chief was pointing out, is that we would have what we would believe or could foresee being a delay in getting, you know, an officer to clear a scene prior to our entry. As it stands right now, when we work with the sheriff's office here in Contra Costa, there's only a limited number of officers, and I believe it's 6 at any given time, that are covering the area from Crockett all the way into the unincorporated community of North Richmond. They also are assisted by other outside agencies. Hercules PD, for instance, helps run calls into Rodeo. And then they also get a lot of assistance from CHP. So I really wouldn't say that we would see a potential for like a drastic change in our service delivery or availability to do such, just that we would have to be maybe a little bit more cognizant of the fact that a new model would be in existence or being practiced. So I think I would encourage, if any of the board members are, you know, concerned, or anybody in general in the public about the defunding concept, that they do a little bit more research out there and exactly what that means. From what like I said, it doesn't mean an end to the police. It just would mean a change in what it is that they're currently responding to, in an effort to reduce some of that exposure that they're out there getting.
That's helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speaker cards, or anyone else want to speak on the matter?
I did not receive any emails, and I don't see any other raised hands.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hearing no other individuals wishing to speak, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And next is board deliberations and comments. Do we have any comments from other board members?
Oops.
I'm sorry?
So I need to make one correction, or if now that you've already opened up, let me think how we can go back here. So I missed a couple of slides is all, and I need to go over, yes, these are our revenues, and we talked about revenues and how much revenue was coming in, but I didn't talk about the expenditures. And I'm sure that the rest of the board would like to see our expenditures.
Yeah, I was about to have a question on that.
my error. I got a little ahead of myself.
Well, Chief Craig, before we go on with that, maybe we just touch base with council on, you know, does this mean because we're adding to the staff report, are we obligated to reopen the public comments? Because these are all documents that have been already included in our agendas and board packets.
Yeah, I would, since you closed the public hearing, I would reopen it again and see if there's public comment on the updated information that the chief's going to provide, and then close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and do that direction. Sorry, Chief Craig, you're good to go.
Okay. Sorry, I apologize. Like I said, I just got hung up in revenues and forgot that we actually spend some of that money. So do I have control? Kim, can you go? I'm just going to give you the, you know, basically the highlights of what is going to, you know, have the significant impacts or additional impacts on our budget over what the 1920 budget was. And we talked about this during the budget workshop is we have an increase in our permanent salaries due to the enhancements to the employee salaries over the last two, coming up this will be our second year. Kim, can you scroll down a little bit? All right, right there. So a little bit of an increase in the communications budget. That's the monies that are charged to us from the county. And then the increase in our lease payment for the 2 new engines. So there's that increase in there, and the portion that you're seeing is the just starting in January. So our first lease payment won't be due until January, and I believe the old lease payment is still rolled into that total amount. Also, the maintenance of the buildings, we talked about that also in the workshop, in the replacement of the front apron. That's why you see that increase in maintenance of the buildings. And I don't have the breakdown of why professional services is up an additional 75,000. But those are the main ones that are increasing our budget expenditures for 2021. And then go ahead, Kim, and go to the Measure O slide. And this, again, this is just showing where the monies that we're paying out of Measure O this fiscal year, and then what our ending balance will be. So again, it's the health insurance and the retiree medical, the OPEB matching funds, the retirement payment, the UAL payment, and then just the fee that the county charges us for collecting Measure O. And with that, I'm completed again.
Thank you, Chief Crick. Any questions from the board with this information or comments?
No.
Okay. I just had a couple of quick ones. In terms of professional services, you said you're not entirely sure what accounts for that $75,000 increase.
Kim, can you remember what? I don't have the breakdown of all the let me look here.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't have it here in front of me.
So that's actually, the 306 is actually a decrease from what we budgeted this year.
Okay.
We have not spent as much as we were anticipating. So 323,041 is what we budgeted for 1920. We budgeted 306,352 for this coming year.
Okay, so it's not an increase then, it's a decrease actually.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah, if I see it that. And then what about firefighting supplies? That went up a good chunk of change. Is that for equipping the
yeah, that's
new...
that's because the new equipment for the new engines.
And then, so when we purchased the lease purchase ones, is included, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. When we bought the Tahoes, for example, we did have to pay roughly 30 to 40 each on top of the purchase price. Is that the same kind of situation that we're going to have with these engines? Or are they going to come painted, fitted out with lights, everything? Or are we going to have an additional large payment for outfitting them besides the supplies?
Within the lease payment, there's an amount included for both engines for all the equipment and all those things you're talking about, radios, what I call the bolt-ons, the additions that have to be, bolted onto the just the basic, cabin chassis.
Okay. And then for education supplies and courses, is there, is it just because we just never expended that much this year?
That is correct.
Okay.
That's quite a few of the classes that had been scheduled were canceled due to COVID.
Okay. And then jumping down to
all the classes.
no virtual classes?
No.
So Measure O, jumping down to that, I noticed in 1819 we had originally paid out through permanent salaries, and then 1920 and now in 2021 we're deciding to just use it to cover the benefits of the employees. Any reason for that change?
That was a recommendation from our financial consultant to make it just a little bit cleaner, because we weren't able to pay the entire amount of our permanent salaries. This way we're paying the complete balances on each of those other categories.
Okay, and then for the very bottom, it says net change in Measure O funds, and in the previous 2 years we were sitting on about more than $500,000 difference between the revenues and the expenditures for Measure O. Where do those funds go, and how do we track those?
Well, they just roll in.
Like as a well, what do you mean?
That's just the fund balance. That was just the fund balance left in Measure O.
Okay, and then that fund balance, where does that go?
It just stays in Measure O, just rolls into the next year. And so we're using those monies in 2021 now.
Okay, just so I'm following. So we have on the top line, it says revenue, and that's just the raw number of how much we took in for Measure O, right?
Correct.
And then, so are we taking that lower number, the net change in Measure O funds, and are we adding that on to the revenue, or is that being kept tracked separately? And just a little unclear.
It's added on. It's not added on to the revenue because it's not revenue. It's the fund balance. It's the fund balance left over in Measure O.
But where do we keep track of that fund balance?
I'm not following you. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Where do we keep track of it?
I'm just curious because we take in 2.472 million. Well, I'm going to use the adopted budget for 1920. So we adopted the budget that we were going to take 2.42 million as revenue. So no, sorry, I'm going to scratch that. I'm going to go back to 1819. We had the actuals 1819. The revenue was 2.05916. And at the end of the year, after we took out the permanent salaries and UAA payment, we were left with 73,315. Then in 1920, we had 2.472 million in revenues. We spent 1.92 million of that, and now we're sitting on 552,000. How is the district accounting for the 73,315 that was left over in 1819, and now the almost $600,000 that we have in 1920? How are we keeping track of that for purposes of, for example, the Measure O subcommittee?
Well, just like you just said, is that number one, it's in your auditor's report. So in that separate auditor's report that's created for Measure O each year, it's stated in there. So in the balance sheets of the auditor's report, and then it's again in the chief's report and the Measure O Oversight Committee's report. They'll show what the fund balance is for Measure O.
And this year we have an especially high amount of net change in Measure O funds. How are we integrating that large amount of leftover into our next year's budget?
Well, it's just part of the budget. It's part of our fund balance that we may or may not use. We may, that can contribute to half of what our reserves are going to be. So it just becomes part of the budget.
Do we keep track? So I get it. We then that means that we push it to. It accounts for a big part of the reserve that we're going to have as of this year. The more than $1 million reserve we built. Do we keep? Is it that when we stop keeping track of that money from Measure O? Do we stop keeping track that, okay, so we had $600,000 left over from last year in 1920, and we just go ahead and put it in with the reserve? Do we keep track of that Measure O revenue after the year has been completed?
We keep track. I mean, do we carve out those Measure O funds and track them like throughout their lifetime?
Yeah, as far as that 73,315, 73,315 from 1819 that rolled into the next year. Did we keep track of where we spent that 73,315 for 1920?
Yes, we keep track of where it is spent, but we don't track. We wouldn't track a fund balance, and because there would be no fund balance. All monies are allocated somewhere,
mm-hmm.
Whether they're allocated to the reserve, whether they're allocated within the programs, and that's part of what we do almost on a daily basis is track the money through the county and watch all those, keep track of all the fund balances and where the money is being spent.
Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this, just because it doesn't show on this Measure O revenue and expenditure sheet where the previous year's funds were used in the next year, and if they were used in the next year, and whether they just sort of stayed in the Measure O pool, and it's growing by, so 73,315 in 1819, did it increase by 598 in 1920, and then walking into 1920, we have the revenues, a projected of 2.5 million, and we have that carryover balance of 600,000. And do we keep track of the spending for the net of $3 million of Measure O derived funds? It's kind of what I'm saying, because from what I'm looking at now, and I think that's kind of speaks to why I would like the full budget in this stage, is it looks like we only keep track of the money for 1 year and 1 year only, and then we mesh it back with the general fund balance. Same thing for the year after. We spend the money, we allocated it for these items. We were under budget. We're sitting on 600,000 extra, and we roll it into the general fund, and then we kind of stop keeping track of it being Measure O funds being used for X, Y, and Z. But if you're saying that we do keep track of that carryover balance, and we keep track of where we spent that carryover balance, then I guess I'll just have to wait and see in our final budget.
Yeah, we don't lose track of any. We can't afford to lose track of any money, for one thing.
Yeah. The category of Measure O, like it was, we got that 590,000 from Measure O funds.
Yes.
And now we're sitting on it. So let's say next year we want to spend it. That $600,000 derived from Measure O for 2021. Do we put down that, okay, we spent $3 million because of the revenue plus the fund, the carryover fund balance or carryover net change into the next year, and we tell our chart would outline that. I'm sorry if it's not crystal clear, and I think we can definitely talk a little more off record, because I wouldn't want to spend this much time on this.
Well, you know, it's no different than our general fund account. So you can compare it to that.
Yeah.
So, you
I'm
know,
just
we don't show that carryover even in our general fund.
And just to be clear, Chair Gabriel, there's no commingling of Measure O with the general fund. So you can track the Measure O fund through the audit, through the successive year audits, because it's going to be evident that the carryover is going to be in the Measure O fund.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be included in each year's budget because it's new money, new Measure O money, but as long as there's no commingling of Measure O funds with general fund, it's okay. As long as you're spending the Measure O funds for what the ballot measure allowed you to do.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify that I don't mean anything by that I think there's something going on or anything like that. By no means. I'm just trying to sort of paint a picture, because based on what I'm looking at, it does sort of raise the question of, okay, we walked away in 18-19 with 73,315. Where did that go, and how did that show? And that just might be a matter of an extra sheet or something that we already have, like the audit. But yeah, so that's kind of where my question derives from is, the Measure O revenue leftover, did we spend it on next year's salaries? Did we spend it on next year's issues? And as long as we're in compliance with sort of the reporting requirements for Measure O, I have no problem with it. Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board members? Okay, we'll go ahead and reopen the public hearing. Do we have any clarifying questions or, oh, sorry, not clarifying questions. Do we have any members of the public wishing to speak?
I have no emails and I have no raised hands.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Board deliberations and comments. Does anyone wish to comment on this, this item? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the preliminary operating budget for fiscal year 2020 and 2021.
So moved.
Oh, we have a motion by Director Hill. Do I have a second?
Sure, second.
By Director, thank you. Second by Director Covington. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Director Prather?
Aye.
Director Covington?
Yes.
Director Hill?
Yes.
Director Thorpe?
Yes.
Director Gabriel?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the auditor's engagement letter. It's a discussion and possible action item on authorizing Harshwall and Company LLP to perform audit services for 2 additional fiscal years. I believe we have a staff report on that.
You do. And it should be on your screen. But so as you know, we've had Harshwall Harshwall and Company do our audit for the last 3 years. Previous to that, we had the same company for close to 10 years. And, through the MRG analysis, financial analysis, their recommendation and was to change about every 5 years. So with that, I would like to recommend to the board that we continue with Harshwall. We've had a very good working relationship with them. They took it upon themselves, something that no other auditor had done in the years that I've been around, to actually go to the source. They went to the county this year and they performed the audit at the county to be able to answer some of those difficult questions that an auditor needs to answer and be able to dive deep into the records and the books, basically, for the district. I was, pretty impressed by that. No one else had ever done that. They'd always done the audit from the station and just relied on all the information and the documents that we could produce from there. So you do have the contract before you, but it is staff's recommendation for us to continue on with Harshwall and Company.
Thank you, Chief Craig. Any questions or comments from the board? I just had a quick one. In the recommendation, it says June 30, 2020 to June 30, 2021. I mean, wouldn't that be June 30, 2022, since they're going to cover the audit for the previous year?
Is that? I thought we were always 1 year behind, right, Kim?
Yes, so this contract is for the 1920 and the 2021 audits. So the years ending June 30 of those years.
That's what I thought.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from the board? I just wanted to comment really quickly that you know, Harshwall is very easy to work with. I do thank you for explaining that they do use the county's numbers directly rather than relying on ours. It really makes it an independent audit, and that they've been very responsive to the board's questions in the past, and they're also one of the most cost-effective means to get the statutory required audit reports to be done, meaning that our previous contractor was leaps and bounds more expensive than these folks. Okay, with hearing no other questions, do we have any public comments, speaker cards, or individuals wishing to speak?
I have no emails and I have no raised hands.
Okay, and then next we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Or I'm sorry, I should entertain a motion. I'll entertain a motion for, I'll entertain a motion. I'll entertain a motion. Let someone else come up with the motion this time.
I move that we accept staff's recommendation to continue the contract with Harshwall and Company and provide the fire chief the authority to enter into the contract for the period stated.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Hill, a second by Director Thorpe. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Director Prather?
Aye.
Director Covington? Director Covington?
That looked like a yes.
Director Hill?
Yes.
Yes.
Director Thorpe?
Aye.
Director Gabriel?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is sorry, I'm pulling it up right now. Resolution number 2020-05. It's a resolution declaring intent to continue to levy a fire suppression assessment and supplemental fire suppression assessment on all parcels of real property for fiscal year 2020 and 2021 for the Rodeo-Hercules Fire Protection District. We have a staff report on the matter.
It should be before you. So each year we do have to reaffirm the collection of the levy. The two levies were established in 1987 at $52 per risk unit, and the second in 1993 for an additional $59 per risk unit. We do this each year, and you know, the benefit assessment does net the district about $1.3 million, and that if we do not reaffirm collection of the levy, we would be we'd have a shortfall of that same amount. So it is staff's recommendation for the board to reaffirm the levy again for a collection of the district's benefit assessment by adoption of resolution 2020-05.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, do we have any speaker cards or any individuals wishing to speak on the matter?
I have no emails and I have no raised hands.
Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on the matter.
I move that we
Resolution.
assessments.
Sorry, I'll entertain a motion to pass resolution number 2020-05, just to clarify.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Director Prather. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, I have a second by Director Covington. So we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Director Prather,
Aye.
Director Covington,
Aye.
Director Hill,
Yes.
Director Thorpe,
Yes.
Director Gabriel.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
thank you. Next item on the agenda, resolution 2020-06, resolution ordering even year board of directors election, consolidation of elections, and specifications of the election order. I believe we have a staff report.
You do. There it is. So this year is an election year for us and for the rest of the country. So you know, the regular November election, we have currently have two board seats that will be up for election. And you know, it'll be for a 4-year term. So each candidate, you know, and I'm sure everybody's read through the staff report, but each candidate can prepare a statement to go into the election package or packet. It can't exceed a certain number of words. I believe it's about, I think it's 250. There is a cost for submitting that. I have procedures in here for if there is a tie vote and how that will be handled. And with that, you have a resolution, which is 2020-06, that is up for adoption by the board to continue to go ahead with holding the election for the two open seats.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah. So the resolution is just saying that we want to fill these two open seats with the next election. Is that getting that right?
I don't know if it's just me, but it sounded there was some audio issue. Does anyone else hear that?
Can you hear me now?
Director Covington, you're a bit distorted.
Maybe if you turn off your camera for a moment, you'll have enough bandwidth for the audio.
What about now? Hear me?
It's still distorted.
Uh-huh.
Hey, Damon, if you text me your question, I'll read it to the group and I'll ask my question in the meantime. Well, in the silence, if it's okay with you, Chairman Gabriel, I'll ask my question, which is, I guess I don't quite understand. I mean, I understand what it says, but what's the alternative?
You mean if no one ran?
No, I mean, do we have a choice of not resolving to support these elections? I guess that's what I don't understand. Maybe I'm missing something. I mean, I'm in support of it. I just don't understand that.
I think we're required to. You know, it's the people that are currently occupying those seats. It's the end of their term. It's the end of their 4-year term.
So we're passing the resolution, Director Hill, to notify the registrar of voters that we will participate in the election. If the incumbents file and there are no challengers, then we would ask the registrar to certify, and we would not, I think it's my understanding that we would not have to have an election. But this has to open up so that they can open up the nominating period and advertise that these are open positions.
Well, it seems like a no-brainer to me. I mean, to do it, but it just makes the mind sort of wander a little bit. And I wonder, well, what if we didn't pass this resolution? Then we wouldn't participate in the election?
Well, we would not have the registrar of voters do our election.
Well, I'm for it. I was just curious.
And I'll ask this to council. Are there legal ramifications to not holding an open election or making this available?
Though we would have to do, and we would have to do our own election and do all the own processes. So what we're doing is taking advantage of the existing processes by the registrar of voters, which would be much, much cheaper.
So we
There's
would
an option to hold our own election, which would be to print all the materials and do all the things, conduct our own polling places and all those things.
Are there deadlines to these requirements?
There is a deadline for us to submit this resolution, yes.
July 1st.
In the meantime, Director Covington has texted me his question, and it is the resolution just stating that we want to fill the 2 seats with by using the election?
That is correct.
Can you hear me right now?
That's still distorted, Not sure why. You may have to disconnect and reconnect, Director Covington. Alternatively, you could use the QA function in the application.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions or comments from the board in regards to this item? Any individuals wishing to speak on the matter?
I had Jerry Short just raise his hand.
Okay.
Good evening, board and chair. On this particular matter, I would just advise, and I think we would like to see the election continue as it has in the past. Understanding the cost is involved, but we're taking advantage of the county election office to do the ballot collection, the vote count, and all of the legwork for us, where we really, especially under the COVID scenario, we would not have the people power, the administrative support, or anybody in the office capable of doing that. And I believe if council could probably speak to it, but there would also probably have to go out to the public to see if we would actually change from that. And we've being that we've had a track record as the fire district of running our elections in conjunction with the county's election cycle and the county election office, I really don't see why we would question going away from that to do anything other. All of the other governing boards throughout the county, the fire boards alike, special districts and whatnot, all use the county's election board to go about their elections as well. So I just don't see that it would be financially prudent or just even prudent overall in general for us to reinvent the wheel and go out on our own to run an election independently.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to comment on the item?
I have no other emails or raised hands.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2020-06.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Director Hill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Director Prather. Can we go ahead and do a roll call vote?
Director Prather,
Aye.
Director Covington,
He raised his hand.
sorry, I can't see that. Director Hill,
Yes.
Director Moore,
Yes.
Director Gabriel,
Yes.
motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, next item is employee compensation and promotion. Promotion of Administrative Assistant Kimberly Corcoran to Starting Step Administrative Services Officer, effective July 1, 2020. It looks like they would like to confirm Chief's action and authority to enact and execute compensation items to remain consistent with the Rodeo-Hercules Fire Protection District Policy 5A12 and 130 Administrative Personnel Non-Safety Administrative Services Officer for the receipt of benefits as listed under the Safety Personnel's MOU. And I think we have a staff report on this.
So I changed my mind.
Oh.
No.
I was going to say, I was like, Kim, are you still there?
I'm kidding. You know, Kim's been working for us now and with me for 5 years. You know, to go off of script here and go away from the staff report for a minute, she absolutely is my right hand. You hear other fire chiefs speak of their administrative assistants in the same regard. And I have the utmost respect for her. We talk on a multitude of subjects in regards to the fire department, the district, our finances, and you know, besides being the person that's taking care of the books, you know, she's a great ear also, and a great person to be able to bounce things off of, and sometimes just to have that different perspective is really helpful. But other than that, for some reason it's not written correctly there. Anyway, the administrative assistant position is truly a training position or a learning position to get to advance up to the administrative service officer's position that we have. And Kim has, if I can call her Kim or call her Kimberly, she loves that. She has met each and every one of those requirements that we have stated within our policy manual that achieve that new position of administrative service officer. A great example is the PowerPoint that you witnessed tonight and that we used during the workshop. She put that together. You know, we worked on, she did the bulk of the content, and then we just fine-tuned it together. But I thought she did an excellent job on it. I praised her on it from the beginning to the end. Anyway, I'm going on too much. So with that said, it is my recommendation to the board that we promote Kimberly Corcoran to Administrative Service Officer effective July 1st, 2020.
Okay, thank you, Chief Craig. Any comments from the board?
I'll make that motion that we accept that.
Okay, thank you, Director Prather. We're just going to run through any comments from the board really quick, but I do hear the motion.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly support it. I think it's a great move for everybody, us, the district, and Kimberly, of course, Officer Kimberly. So I wholeheartedly support it. And it's not just because she managed to help me get on to the new email system. It's much more than that. I've heard a rumor that the chief only shows up for these board meetings, and the rest of the time she runs the place.
Our secret is out.
Any other comments from the board? I just want to say one quick thing. I mean, I started here at the district sort of at a time when it was going through a lot of heavy changes. The board makeup was very different back then, and it was a time of difficulty, and no one could have ever handled it more professionally and more cordially in a way with a level-headed mind and a level-headed attitude from what I could see and witness than Kim. And I think I'm very happy that this has come across the board and we're getting the opportunity to finally give Kim truly what the position that she deserves and also has earned with her many years of service, and hopefully many years more. And hopefully with this, it kind of solidifies her importance here with the fire district. Any other comments from the board? Okay. Any speaker cards on the matter, or any individuals of the public wishing to speak on the matter?
I have no emails and I have no raised hands, and I just wanted to thank everybody for their kind comments.
And so we have a motion on the floor by Director Prather. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Oh, Director Covington, your audio is perfect again.
Oh, it's back?
Yeah, it's back.
Back
so
from
we have a
break.
second by Director Covington. Okay, and then I guess we'll do a roll call vote.
Director Prather?
No, I mean, I'm just kidding.
Director Covington?
Absolutely.
Director Hill?
Yes.
Director Thorpe?
Yes.
Director Gabriel?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats. Okay. Next item on the agenda, fire chief's report.
So again, just because we've been doing this for a couple hours now, I will hit the highlights, as I like to do. Again, we still have our safety precautions in place for all of our personnel that are coming to the station. We're still doing our temperature checks. They still are wearing their PPE, going out on COVID-related calls. And that is cleared through dispatch, through a questioning process. We're doing the same thing, now district offices are open, so it's clearly posted at the district office that anybody entering district office is to wear a mask. I am currently going to start to receive bids to have a plexiglass or glass divider put on the countertop there to separate the public from the administrative personnel, which I think is important. You see it almost everywhere you go now, and it just gives that one little more level of protection, or at least attempt to protect. We currently, all of our fuel reduction has been completed out in the wildland area, and then the crews will be conducting a live fire training burn. I believe it will be on the 16th of this month, and that will be in the Unocal, or the Phillips 66 property next to the county housing over in Rodeo, and they allow us to use that space each year for a live fire training burn. That is very valuable, not just to our personnel, but we open that up to pretty much any agency that wants to come and assist in and outside, in the county and outside the county. Other than that, attended the Phillips 66 Community Advisory Panel meeting, and during that time, they made the announcement that they will be replacing their current plant manager. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to affect us yet. I had established a very good working relationship with the current plant manager. He is actually being transferred up to Washington. They've assured me that the person that's taking his place is a carbon copy of him. I hope that is true because we have absolutely established a broken relationship over there and reestablished a fantastic working relationship with them. And we had many things already planned, slated, and we're moving forward with that we're going to be very beneficial for the district. I don't have any true concerns yet that those will get off track because our public relations manager is remaining. But, you know, to have to basically re-educate or someone to our district and start a relationship all over again with someone new, I'm hoping there won't be any challenges to it. And I'm sure that we've had such a great working relationship with them through these, the last few years. I'm confident that will continue. But with that, any questions or comments in regards to the fire chief's report?
Is there any questions from the board? I just had a quick one regarding to the incident type count. It looks like a good number of them have been incident type left like blank. What does that mean? The very top line, the 57.
That's exactly what it means.
Oh, just
when
we don't know.
When the report was written, they did not indicate exactly the type of call it was.
That's a notable number. Has it always been that high?
I don't have the rest of the reports in front of me, so.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, I think this is the way, this may be a different report. I've never seen that that count on our reports before.
Yeah, same. I thought it was odd that they wouldn't classify it anything.
And then, I can't answer to exactly. I just know that if there's nothing indicated in the incident type, that's why it's showing up like that.
They want to raise our communications amounts for next year. Okay. Any other board members have any questions or comments for the chief?
Chief, quick question back to COVID-19. What's going on with testing? Are you is any testing being done? Is it voluntary? Are you mandating it? Have there been any tests done?
It's strictly voluntary, and I did put out all the information when that was produced by the health department to the employees that it's completely on them to go and get that test. We are not requiring it, and the fault to that test is it's only for that exact moment that you're having the test. And then once you walk away from the test, you could be exposed in the next 5 minutes, in the next week, in the next month. And so it's a little bit of a false security that you've had the test and maybe you come back, negative. But you get exposed after you've left having the test. So with the current testing, the only way, what it's truly for is that trace analysis. Is you find somebody that's positive and then you find out who they've had contact with. and then
Well,
isolate them.
I don't want to have a long COVID-19 discussion here, but I guess what I was really thinking about was, have there, in all these many weeks, has there not been anyone with symptoms that we've had to have tested?
No.
And I guess the only other thing I'd say
At
to
the very
that,
beginning, we had somebody with had a severe cold or flu-like symptom. Those had actually subsided, but under the recommendation of our health officer, we did have that individual tested, and he was negative.
I guess the only thing I'd say about all that, and I don't want to have a debate about it, and I know it's getting late, but is that it seems that what's happening is that we're learning that there are people that are without symptoms, yet they carry the virus and are able to infect other people. And
apparently that's rare.
And so there's a multitude, I think you made reference to it, Chief, already. There's a multitude of ways to get tested now, to include the free test you do by FedEx that comes to your home. So, I mean, I don't know if it's worth reevaluating that or not, but I know that the county health officer, who you already made reference to, is all but begging people to get tested. So for what it's worth, you might take it under consideration.
Yeah, like I said, I've left it completely voluntary right now. And it would absolutely be a meet and confer item, because that would be working conditions for me to enforce the personnel to go and be tested.
Thank you. Any other questions for the chief in regards to the fire chief's report? Okay. Any members of the public wishing to comment?
I have no raised hands and no emails.
Thank you. Okay. With that, I will move on. Staff report.
No additional staff reports.
Okay. Board member reports. LAFCO. I was not able to attend the meeting today. My apologies. Most part of it too is the last two meetings have been canceled, and this one was supposed to be via Zoom as well, and I wasn't able to make that meeting. But I will get the minutes, and I can sort of roll that into a larger report next month. Measure O Oversight Committee report. Any correspondence from them?
Yes, we're going to have our first meeting in these last few months next Wednesday, and it will be by Zoom.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Next, ad hoc committee reports. Reserve Program Ad hoc Committee. Anything to report?
No, that'll be on the strategic planning once we get another meeting going.
Proposition 172. I think I would at this time entertain a motion to disband this committee for the time being. I think it's open for discussion at a later date, but just right now, I don't like having ad hoc committees sort of out in the wind, not being effective. And so with that, I'd entertain a motion from the board to disband this ad hoc committee. Does that have to be an action item? Let me clarify first with council. Does that have to be an action item or agendized item?
May I recommend instead that you table the ad hoc committee so that it just will be noticed in the minutes, that the board can bring it back whenever it wants, but you'll table it and it won't appear on future agendas until
Okay.
the board brings it back.
Does that require a board action?
Yeah, just it's a Robert's Rules thing, but you're a motion to table the item until further notice, and then you take a vote.
Okay. Well, in that case, I'll entertain a motion to table the Prop 172 ad hoc committee until the board decides to bring that back.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Director Hill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Director Hill and a second by Director Covington. Please signify by saying aye. All
Aye.
in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. Okay, next item is the Strategic Planning Ad Hoc Committee. So we haven't been able to meet given the ongoing issues. And so I don't have anything to report. Does maybe the other member of the committee have anything to report?
The items I asked to be on the agenda, Chair Gabriel, apply to the strategic planning. My recommendation would be on the items I wanted to bring up. Let me send the emails on the writings that I have to our counselor, and then hopefully he can send them out to the board members. And I would like the idea of the strategic planning to go to all members of the district. We have things looming out there, the not too distant future, that are going to be serious, and we need to make some real strategic planning decisions.
Thank
That's my
you.
report.
Thank you for that. Okay, I think one thing we should do now that things are slowly becoming some sort of level of normalcy is for the three of us to come back together on this matter. Next is the Budget Ad Hoc Committee. Director Covington, Director Hill.
Well, as already has been referenced in the workshop, we conducted our meeting at long last and worked through the preliminary budget that we reviewed tonight with the chief. And unless there's something else that's lingering out there for us, perhaps it's a time to disband this committee. I don't know. What do you think, Director Covington?
Yeah, unless there's something else that we need to address prior to the permanent budget coming on board in August. I think we've done our due diligence.
Perfect. And just to confer with District Council, the Budget Ad Hoc Committee, we can go ahead and disband that since it's dealing particularly with this budget, or table it.
My recommendation is until to leave it available to the board before the final budget approval. There may be changes that from staff and from the consultant that they may want to run by the ad hoc committee. So my recommendation is to disband it until after the final budget's approved in August. And that's been practice for prior years.
Thank you. And I guess I'll leave it to the committee members. Do we want to follow the District Council's recommendation?
Yeah, I'm fine with leaving it open until, in case they need any additional.
That's reasonable to me. I agree.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. In that case, we'll leave it on until we see fit to disband it. Okay. Local 1230 correspondence.
Good evening, board and chair and chief and Kim. And we'll start by congratulating Kim. And I will confirm that the rumor is true. Kim runs the show as our previous administrative officer did, regardless of which chief is in the office, physically or remotely. Sorry, Chief Craig, the secret is out. I'd like to thank the ad hoc committee on the budget and their approval and their diligence. I do agree with various members of the board that we could do a little bit better outlining some of those expenditures, especially as it pertains to the overtime and the reimbursement costs associated with strike teams and the monies that are truly brought in to the district as a revenue based on that. It has been a sticking point, but as you guys are all aware, our budget has become more and more clear with every cycle we've gone through since we've made those concerted efforts on the district's behalf to make it more transparent. So I applaud everyone for their hard work, and it's good to see that we are making strides in the right direction, contrary to the looming nature of Director Prather's mentioning of stuff that's always negative regarding the district. We continue to move forward in a positive direction and making positive strides in our financial endeavors as well. So thank you guys all, and that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you. With that, next item is the request for future agenda items. So for this, I want to clarify before we get into that, you know, previously our old board policy allowed the chair to unilaterally place items onto the agenda for discussion. I believe it was last year, correct me if I'm wrong, because I remember we looked this up, I think June of last year, the board had updated its policies and procedures and included in it a policy and procedure on how new items are to be placed to the agenda. The policy and procedure requires that the board, if an individual member of the board wishes to discuss an item, then I'll just read it out here. The policies, we just literally copied and pasted it onto the agenda for clarity and transparency. Board members wishing to have an agenda item placed on a future agenda shall ask the fire chief or his or her designee to include the request under the request for future agenda items section of the agenda. At the next regular scheduled district board meeting, the requested item will be listed on the agenda under request for future agenda items. The item will identify the board member A making the request and briefly describe the nature of the request. Staff will not spend time on the requested item except to provide assistance to the board member to frame the issue so that the board and public clearly understand the request. And then it'll go into the policy and how we do things here, but we went ahead and just placed the items that the board members of the board wish to discuss. We can discuss the item and sort of determine whether or not something we want to talk about in a future agenda, and if there's any staff resources we want to allocate to them. I think we're scrolling down to them right now. Perfect. Okay. And with that, we received 4 items from Director Prather that he would like to see in a future agenda. And so per the policy, we went ahead and placed them on here. And I think we'll go through them one by one. Director Prather, if you want to take the lead at this point.
Yeah, I think that we really need to look at the need for the replacement quint and the pumper. When you look at our statistics over the last several years, the need for a pumper on every call, the need for our quint to be run into the ground doesn't make much sense to this director. As far as the idea of the firefighter temp agency, I think it's time that we look at it, discuss it, figure out how it's going to work to our advantage. I personally think it would be a win-win for both the public and the employees. I know things have changed. We don't do the business that we used to, but we still need to have a training area here. That was the whole purpose when we did the training area, that we would have a reserve force. I know the union's opposed to it, and that's a shame. They're short-sighted in many areas. And I'm not negative on the district. I'm negative about some areas where we could do a lot better for the citizens and our taxpayers. The staffing, we're using the same staffing model that we used forever. And again, when you look at our call volume and how we deliver our service, it's pretty much outdated, and we need to review it. Assisting Pinole, if Pinole goes for a vote for funding, if they don't pass that vote, we're going to be in deep trouble. I was for the management of Pinole. Hanley had it, and Hanley screwed it up. And that was a sad, sad day. I asked then that we get a committee to go meet with the city council, and that was rebuffed. Hanley said, let them stew in their own juice. And believe me, that was not leadership, but he wasn't concerned with leadership. We should be as directors. So I would like those on the next agenda. We can discuss them. I would, as I said, I'll send to the counselor things that I've written. I'd like him to send them to all of our members, and hopefully we can have a real discussion on what's real and what's fairy tale. That's my opinion.
Okay. Thank you, Director Prather. Members of the board, they do have the 4 items in front of you. I think we'll go through them item by item, and then if you want to discuss further or ask questions as to what the particular item would require, if staff time needs to be dedicated to answer particular questions, or if the board decides that they don't wish to pursue that avenue and not to put it on a future agenda item. So I guess we'll go item by item. The item number 1, review the need for the purchase of the replacement quint and pumper, as well as some matters about the strategic planning for the district. I guess I can hear from the board if they wish to have that in a future agenda item.
And directors, I just want to caution you that this is just to put the items on a future agenda for a more robust discussion. There shouldn't be a full-length discussion about them now. And what is typically done is a motion and a second and a vote to add them to a future agenda for further discussion. What you're really doing is signaling to staff to provide whatever information you need related to the particular items that you vote to put on a future agenda. So staff is prepared to provide you additional information. In addition, if directors, like Director Prather said, want to provide additional information, they can do so in the interim period for the further discussion at a later board meeting.
Thank you for the clarification. So yeah, I guess I'll entertain a motion to place item number 1 on a future agenda.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Director Prather to place item number 1 on future agenda.
Are we not going to have any comment on this? I just heard what Counselor said, but on the concept of what we're doing here, or are we just going to go ahead and vote on it without any discussion?
You cannot have a substantive discussion on the item because right now you're just being asked to add it to a future agenda for further discussion and to allow staff to prepare information for the board, for board members to prepare information, to distribute information in anticipation and in preparation for the further discussion at a later time.
I meant more on the concept because maybe I missed something along the way, but I think this is the first time we've done this way. Is that right?
Well, we've had this agenda item on every meeting since the board changed its policy. But this is the first time that Director Prather has provided more detail about the proposals, which is fine. But under the Brown Act, the board is allowed to take action to put items on a future agenda for further discussion. And that's the only action you can take.
Yeah, so basically, based on what you read there, do you want to talk more about it, or is it something you're not interested in pursuing?
Well, I don't know if this is something that we can talk about now, but the observation I wanted to make in general, not discussing any one of these in particular, is that in my view, they are all solutions to a problem that we've not yet defined, and that the definition of the problems that might prompt us to be able to decide we want to discuss these, and I don't want to take anything off the table personally, but the method by which we define the problem that would lead us to being able to decide that we want to address these and put time and energy against them is the strategic planning process, whereby we would identify the challenges that we expect to face and the problems that we want to address. And to me, the cart's in front of the horse on every one of these. That's my personal opinion.
Okay, so I hear that, but the motion's on the floor to adopt item number 1. And I hear you on your position and how we can, that these are pieces of a bigger puzzle, but we do have this request by Director Prather in front of us, and we have to respond to it in kind. And so the question is, do we want to have a dedicated agenda item for a future agenda titled as such? So I have that motion on the floor by Director Prather. Do I have a second? Is what I'm looking for.
And Chair, just to clarify, to Director Hill's comment, he can add an agenda item if he likes. You could present an agenda item for the board to consider at a later meeting regarding his concerns or his understanding of wanting to discuss, again, the issue that precedes possibly what Director Prather is presenting. So Director Hill could put that before the board as a possible agenda item for future consideration at this time.
In the meantime, I'll second the motion.
Okay. We have a motion by Director Prather, a second by Director Thorpe. I guess we'll do a roll call vote.
Director Prather,
Aye.
Director Covington,
Aye.
Director Hill,
Well, you put me in a difficult position because I'm not against this, but I think it's not the right timing and I think it's not good use of our time. So I have to vote no.
Director Thorpe,
Aye.
Director Gabriel,
I'm abstaining.
motion passes, 3 yeas, 1 no, 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you. The item number 2, the firefighter temp agency, whether that's something to discuss, I'll entertain a motion to place that on a future agenda item.
So
As a
moved.
future- Okay, motion by Director Prather. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Director Thorpe. Okay, any council, if you could just clarify, do we have some level of discussion, or do we just go straight into, we'll do a roll call vote?
Just do a vote.
You could discuss the parameters of what the item will be discussed. If that's pretty much it. You can't have a substantive discussion and take action on whether you want to do a firefighter temp agency or not. That's for a later time. But you could direct questions to the motion maker if you wish to just check the parameters again of the request.
Thank you. With that, is there any questions as to the parameters of this proposed agenda item? Okay, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Director Prather,
Aye.
Director Covington,
No.
Director Hill,
No.
Director Thorpe,
Yes.
Director Gabriel,
No.
motion fails 2 to 3.
I have a question. If this is not discussed in our district, it'll be discussed in the public. And they will have a vote on this. Overtime is a big issue. And if we don't address it, we're in trouble. What we face, if we don't do this, privatization is booming.
Director Prather, I do have to cut in on there. I think we're approaching substantive content as to this particular item.
That's
I hear
fine,
you.
that's
I
fine.
hear you. So we're gonna, I do have to sort of make sure we continue on to the next item. Item number 3, future staffing and response plans for our district and Battalion 7 and the Panola Fire Department. I guess at this point, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion to adopt this item on a future agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt this item into a future agenda item. As a future agenda item, do I have a second?
Motion to add this item, sorry.
Motion to add this item on a future agenda item. I think Director Covington will go ahead and make that motion. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second by Director Thorpe. Okay, any questions as to the scope of this discussion?
Yes, I'd like to know the scope.
Okay, and I think we'll leave it to Director Prather, who is the individual who placed this item or requested that this item be on the agenda. Is he still here?
It looks
That's
like
no-
he is no longer in the meeting.
Okay. I at this point, I think we kind of have to take it at face value, if I'm not correct, Mr. Fioruta.
I think what you see there is what's to be discussed at this point in time. That's what we would put on for the agenda.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
I guess what I'm not clear on is whether this is a discussion of the newly, Chief, haven't we just approved the Battalion 7 agreement?
That's affirmative.
So, I mean, is this just a discussion of something that we've already voted on? I don't know. I would vote for every one of these in the context of a strategic planning process, but I can't do it. And this one doesn't make any sense to me because we already just last month, I think, right, Chief?
If I may, Director Prather just rejoined the meeting.
I think we just approved the Battalion 7 agreement last month, so I don't understand this one at all.
Well, Director Hill, if you can restate your question. Director Prather looks like he rejoined the chat. So once we get his confirmation that he's on, Director Prather, if you could just say something really quick or raise your hand that you can hear us.
I'm here.
Okay, Director Hill, do you want to direct your parameters question to Director Prather?
Yeah, so I don't, in the context of the reality that we just voted, I think we just voted and approved the Battalion 7 agreement last month. I don't understand this. What are we discussing? We've already agreed to it all.
To what now?
Item 3.
I'm not hearing you very well. I'm sorry.
Item 3.
Okay, and what about it? Staffing is set. We're going to do 3 on a big bumper forever. Is that what we're looking at?
I don't understand that. What I said was, I believe we just voted on and approved our the Battalion 7 agreement last month. I don't know.
I'm very much aware of that. Doesn't mean we can't make adjustments moving forward with a new reality.
Okay, so I think I get the understanding of parameters of this. It's just sort of long term. We have what we have now, but do we want to discuss how different that can be in the future? Am I kind of synopsing?
Hello?
Oh, sorry. I think I lost a little bit of connection there. Did I kind of summarize what you were mentioning about that, what the future of what's an engine company and defining those kinds of things in the long term? Did I kind of get that? Just long story short.
Long story short is we haven't changed our delivery system for many, many years. And when you look at the number of fires we have, are we really needing to run our very expensive equipment into the ground doing other than fire responses? If the public's aware of it and our management isn't, then we have a problem.
Okay, thank you. So I guess that's kind of what we have for parameters. Is that something that the board is interested in going for? So knowing that, understand that parameters, I think we had a motion and a second. Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
Yes, so we do have a motion and a second. We have any other questions as to the parameters of this particular item? Okay, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote on this.
Director Prather?
Aye.
Director Covington?
Director Covington, I think you were on mute where I didn't hear it at least.
Abstain.
Director Hill?
Outside the context of a strategic planning process, which the proposer was partly responsible for planning, I have to vote no.
Director Thorpe,
Yes.
Director Gabriel,
No.
so we have 2 yays, 2 noes, and 1 abstention.
Yeah, Mr. Pierotta, if you can remind me sort of what happens when we do have a deadlock.
Motion fails.
Thank you. Okay, on to the next item. Assisting Pinole Fire Department with any revenue measure and to study combining management of the RHFD and the Pinole Fire District. I'm getting a little bit of, what do you call it, deja vu with this particular item, but, you know, this is whether or not to discuss it in a future agenda, to add it to a future agenda. So I'll entertain a motion to add this to a future agenda.
And to clarify, it's Pinole Fire Department.
Pinole Fire, okay.
So moved if we're still looking for a motion.
Thank you. I have a motion by Director Prather. Do I have a second? I'll call for it one more time. Do I have a second for this particular item? Okay. Hearing no second, I take it the motion fails at that point.
Okay, gentlemen, you made your stance known. God bless us.
Okay. Thank you, Director Prather, for sending those items, and I do invite the future all directors to go ahead and send those. I think this is our first time doing this, so it is a learning process to understand sort of what it is. But we do have this policy, and we do have this policy for a reason, to make sure that staff resources. As we are all aware, there's a limited number of staff and a limited amount of resources and time, and so we truly want to make sure that we dedicate we have a consensus, at least, as to where those resources should be allocated. Director Hill, I think, did you have any, you hinted at a future agenda item, but I wonder if you managed to form it and wanted to present it to the board at this time?
Well, I think we have an urgent need. I agree with Director Prather on a lot of this. But one of the things I said in the very beginning when I showed up on this board was I didn't want to sit up there and have us building watches on the on the dais when all we really wanted to know was what time it was. And I think that all these things have merit and value, but if we entertain them individually as looking for solutions without fully understanding the problem, perhaps Director Prather's right in his estimation of the problem, perhaps he's not. Perhaps we will agree as a board that his estimation of the problem is, our reality. If we could do that first in a strategic planning process, meaning to look out at what we think our challenges are over the coming, I don't know, I think we had some discussion about 5 to 10 years at one point, and then decide where we're going to put our time and staff's time on the prioritized problems, challenges we need to address. I would support many, if not all of these. So by way of agenda item, I don't know, we've already got an ad hoc committee. I'm not sure if we need to, I'd be willing to propose an agenda item that says we should discuss and agree on a strategic planning process at the next meeting, if that would help us get to the point where we can talk about these things in a cogent fashion.
Okay, so what I hear from what you told me is you would like to see some future agenda item to the tone of for us to talk about how to come up with a problem to solve in terms of a strategic plan, like the derivative of actually talking about the strategic plan, how to get there.
Well, I don't want to get to the point of proposing to the board what the ad hoc committee's assignment is to determine the strategic planning process. But if we need to address Director Prather's concerns on these issues, and I would suggest to you that there's probably many more we ought to consider, in a prioritized fashion, then I think we need to enter into a strategic planning process. And we haven't done it now for months and months. And I know we've had a number of challenges these last few months. Don't get me wrong, I get that. But I think what we ought to do is we ought to commit ourselves to establishing that strategic planning process, in which a part of that, it will become probably discussing many, if not all, of these issues. So I don't know exactly what the agenda item would be, but I guess it could be for us to have a discussion about what kind of strategic planning process do we want to have and when's the first meeting.
Okay, so I'll take that as the agenda item on the table.
Just call it strategic planning.
Well, there's a recording of this going on right now. I think that should help understand what the item is.
Hey, Director Gabriel, maybe maybe the agenda item is as simple as this: set the date for the set the dates for the strategic planning workshops.
Okay, perfect. Let's do that. I hear set the date for the strategic planning workshops. Do I have a motion to add that onto the agenda? I move to add that onto the agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a second by Director Thorpe. We'll go ahead and, is there any questions as to the scope of this particular agenda item? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Before we take that vote, I do have a raised hand. Do you want to take that comment?
Oh, yes, please. We'll go ahead and take that comment.
All right, Jerry Short.
Thank you, Director and fellow board members. I just would like to implore and encourage the board to have Director Prather submit tangible supporting documentation and information on these items as they've been approved for future agenda. I'd like to also point out to the board that Director Prather's lapse in the fire service, myself personally, I currently have 20 years in the fire service, and I believe that to be twice, if not coming up on 3 times as long as Director Prather. He talks constantly about being out of touch with the public and how we need to lead the change. You know, I will remind the board to look at years past agendas and see where these things were brought forth with nothing tangible to support. I applaud you guys for wanting to have his process vetted and have his concerns here, but I don't believe that the Rodeo-Hercules Fire District in its current capacity, with a limited budget that already has shown where it's struggled, we've made our improvements, we've rode those waves up and down successfully, and we still have shortcomings within our own. And by that, we don't have the means to properly train our people in-house, but yet he wants to take on a reserve program and train them. The feasibility of such has never been brought forward by Director Prather, and really his thought processes are not in line with what the fire service is today. I believe we have people on this board that would know better of what the fire service truly is in its current makeup. The temp agency alone, and I will say that I'm glad to see that that was not a supported thing, but that's something that we are not a trade hall where you can call and dispatch a carpenter that's out of work on a list to be, sent to a job site in another city where he's going to frame something. We are all trained in this county. The union that Director Prather loves to slander and voice his disdain for, Local 1230, being the representative body of 7 of the agencies within Contra Costa County, including the Rodeo-Hercules firefighters, we have 7 different MOUs that we operate underneath. And those MOUs are only the MOUs with each agency we represent. That doesn't include each agency's specific SOPs, rules, policies, and their own internal regulations. So to just say that we could blindly train a bunch of high school kids to circumvent the overtime budget, I don't see how that's going to be possible. Eliminating the big red fire truck and running calls and pickup trucks, it's not at all possible either. We are supposed to be well-trained individuals that are able to respond from the grocery store as we would from our station. And that is the reason that we've always done that. So I would just like to wrap this up by saying, again, I understand the want, but I also would encourage all of you to do your own homework on these wild accusations, these proposals, and these ideals of someone that is no longer in tune with the actual fire service of today. Director Prather has continuously made reference to the good old days in the fire service, and you know, those days have long passed, and there's nothing the same. And I just, you know, I have stacks of letters where this has been going on since the late 80s, early 90s, with every chief that has sat in the office of the Rodeo-Hercules Fire District and the newspapers at that time. And it has been the constant barrage, the berating of the union involved, and then the constant threat of losing the public support. In regards to the Pinole contract and that thing, and looking after their tax measures of, you know, anything being proposed like that, we looked into that. We've been there, we've done that. Even in this last go around when Pinole was looking and hurting for a chief's position, and the consultant reached out to Chief Craig, it simply did not make dollars, therefore it did not make sense. I also represent the Pinole firefighters, and I can tell you, in working with their city manager and their local government, their current tax measure did not poll well. So again, us getting involved in that is a lose-lose situation. Now, that is up for their city and their council to entertain how it is that they will move forward and support in their needs and their development. But to further tax our budget to pick up the pieces over there, it is not going to be you know, feasible, nor would it be responsible of this board. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was quite something.
All right. So any other future agenda items that wish to be discussed?
Do you want me to do the roll call vote now?
Oh, sorry, that motion was just on the table. Okay, yes, please do.
So this
Can I have the motion reread, please?
It's the motion by Director Gabriel, seconded by Director Thorpe to set dates for the strategic planning workshops.
Thank you.
Director Prather?
Aye.
Director Covington?
Aye.
Director Hill?
Aye.
Director Thorpe?
Aye.
Director Gabriel?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Any other future agenda items that anyone wants to bring forth to the board?
Chair Gabriel?
Yes.
On item number 1, what is the board's direction to staff?
For that, I think I will defer to the individual who requested the future agenda item. Director Prather, if you want to clarify a little bit more as to what staff would do.
We can take it up later. It's not important.
I mean, what I guess it would be helpful so that each of the directors can also be sort of prepared for the discussion as well.
I'll send an email to everybody.
Well, I mean, being compliant with the Brown Act, just as a reminder, I know you're aware of it, but you know, be sure to either BCC the board and direct it to perhaps staff.
I'll send it to our counselor. He can send it how it needs to be.
Okay, and then just be sure to do that with like in as soon as possible, so that staff has an opportunity to respond and follow up with clarifying questions, and also so the board can have it sort of on their plate early on. Okay. Chief Craig, did you have any questions for direction on any of the other agenda items we've agreed to put on?
No.
No, the other one, you're going to vote on moving forward with the strategic plan and planning dates, and the other 3, as I understand it, the other 3 agenda items failed. Is that correct?
Kim, do you happen to have that in front of you? Just to confirm that those are the 2?
Those are correct.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Perfect. Okay. With that, if there's no other future agenda item requests, The time is 9:11, 9:12, 9:12, and we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.